children in one of Delhi's populated areas. He wore a mask and came to see a doctor in a local hospital on June 3rd, and he was immediately hospitalized in an isolation room. During the course of hospital admission, his chief complaints were that patient complained of malaise, dry cough, and mild headache since the past 3 days. As per past history, he arrived from Mumbai 1 week ago and was asymptomatic during the thermal screening at the airport. Patient has a history of allergic cough, which he suffers from during the spring season, which overlaps during the similar season with frequent sneezing. He takes an antihistaminic for it since the past few years. He has no history of associated comorbidities such as hypertension or diabetes mellitus. On examination, general examination wise, the pulse was 110 beats per minute, blood pressure was 130 by 80 mm of Hg, temperature was 38.7 degrees Celsius, respiratory rate was 19 breaths per minute, and oxygen saturation at room air was 92%. On auscultation, bilateral bronchi were heard. For diagnosis on day 1, his nasal and pharyngeal swab was sent for RT-PCR testing, which tested positive for SARS-CoV-2 virus around midnight. Immediate routine blood investigations were sent, where hemoglobin was 12 gram per dl, WBC of 7.4, and there was mild thrombocytopenia and elevated levels of creatinine. On chest X-ray, there were significant left basilar opacity, arousing a concern for pneumonia. So on management, since the patient was with this kind of presentation, the patient is classified to have a mild illness. So with this mild illness, he was mainly given supportive treatments such as 650 mg of paracetamol with diclofenac formulation and guanifencin for his continued cough, and proper hydration with 6 liters of normal saline over the first 6 days of hospitalization. For concern of hospital-acquired pneumonia, vancomycin and cefepime was initiated, and patient was also supplemented with vitamin C and zinc. On hospitalization day 5, the oxygen saturation of the patient dropped to 90% while he was breathing ambient air. So patient complained of some nasal congestion and difficulty in breathing. So on day 6, he was started on supplemental oxygen delivered by nasal cannula at 2 liters per minute, and steam inhalation was given every 4 hours, which provided him a significant relief in nasal congestion. On day 7, patient's condition improved and oxygen support was tapered. Patient was improved and stable. There was no fever since the past 3 days. And so on day 10, the patient was discharged. Thank you, everyone. Now I would like Dr. Nishant to take over.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we have seen the case scenario, and we found that there was steam inhalation was given at day 6 when the symptoms were started to worsen. So we will look at the evidence for available for steam inhalation. We have a systematic review for heated humidified air for common cold. So we will try to see what this systematic review tells us about the use of heated humidified air for common cold. Then we'll try to see what is the quality of this systematic review, and following which we will see how this could be extrapolated for COVID, for the use in COVID cases. So before I start, I must tell you that I'm one of the authors of this review team. So I might be inclined towards this intervention, and the rest I have no other conflict of interest. So the objective of this review was to assess the effects of inhaling the heated water vapor in the treatment of common cold by comparing symptoms, viral shedding, and nasal resistance. So the PICO for this systematic review was for P participants were people of all ages with natural or experimentally induced common cold or acute viral rhinopharyngitis receiving warm vapor. The intervention was inhalation from a device delivering warm humidified air at 40 degree to 47 degrees C that raised intranasal temperature. And comparator was breathing from a similar device that delivered humidified or ambient temperature air at up to 30 degrees C. The outcomes here, I have mentioned only the primary outcomes, which were reduction in the clinical severity of the common cold, and second was the number of participants with subjective response, that is, therapy did not help. And the types of studies which were included in this review were randomized controlled trials investigating rhinothermy. Rhinothermy is involves the application of heated humidified air to the nasal passages using the instrument called rhinotherm. So to find out the relevant studies, we searched the various databases like Cochrane Central, Medline from Ovid, Embase, Current Contents. We also searched for the ongoing trials in WHO ICTRP and clinicaltrials.gov. And there were other resources like the reference list of all primary studies and review articles for additional references. And we also plan to contact the experts of the field to identify if there is any unpublished material available. So this is a snapshot of the search strategy used for Central, and this was then translated for other databases. So here you can see we have used the terms like common cold, coryza, nasopharyngitis, respiratory tract infections, congestion, blockage, stuffiness, rhinovirus, coronavirus is also used as a term here, adenovirus, humidity, nebulizers, and vaporizers, etc. And we have combined them using various Boolean operators like or, and. So for the other methodology, there were 3 review authors that independently screened the titles and abstracts for this update, and full text reports were retrieved, and they were deemed potentially eligible, etc. It was done by 3 authors. Then 2 review authors, they independently extracted the outcome data from the included studies, and all the review authors independently assessed the included studies for risk of bias, and it was then discussed amongst them, and any discrepancies were resolved by discussion. So coming to the results, this is the Prisma flow diagram, which tells us about the total number of hits for searching. That is 499 records were identified through database search for the 2017 update, and there were already 6 RCTs included from the previous review version. And as we go down, we see that we had only 6 RCTs included for the qualitative synthesis and 4 RCTs qualified for the quantitative synthesis. So this is the summary of findings table, which tells us about which summarizes the results. So for the first primary outcome, that is reduction in the clinical severity of common cold, which was measured by the decrease in symptom score index. So here you can see we did both the fixed effect model and the random effect model, and there were 2 RCTs with 149 participants, which shows that there was odds ratio of 0.3 for fixed effect model and odds ratio of 0.22. But the confidence intervals varied. When we used the random effect model, there was it became insignificant as it crossed the line of no effect. It crossed 1. The confidence intervals include 1, and whereas the fixed effect model says it is very effective. So therefore, because there is no consensus among these 2 models, the evidence was downgraded, and the significant. So here we have written that significance of the effect is uncertain because use of fixed effect model produces a different result than use of random effect model. So the fixed effect model tells us that it is definitely useful, whereas random effect model tells us it is not useful. it is not significantly useful. Then the second primary objective was number of participants with the subjective response. Therapy did not help. That means the participants who say that they were not comfortable using the rhinotherapy. So here also the odds ratio was not significant because the confidence intervals include 1, and there was high risk of bias, and there was imprecision also, so for which we have downgraded the evidence. So you can see the quality of evidence is low, and the reasons are also given. The effect of risk of bias is also discussed here. So this is the table of excluded studies. These many studies were excluded from this review. The 6 studies were included and 6 studies were excluded, and the reasons for each exclusion are given here. And because they were inhaled cranotherapy with sulfosulfide thermal water, so there were different reasons for exclusion, which are mentioned here. So this is the characteristics of included studies. I have shown here in my presentation only one study, one table, because these are lengthier tables. So this is just to demonstrate what all we have to write while we are discussing the included studies. So here we have written the inclusion criteria for the participants and the exclusion criteria, which includes the setting the country or the health status, about the number of participants in each arm, their age, the sex distribution, and the exclusion criteria. Then coming to the intervention. So what was the intervention given in the treatment group? What was the frequency, duration? How was it administered? It is also mentioned in detail here. And what was done for the control group, so that the reader can very clearly find out what is done in each of the included studies, and whether the studies meet the inclusion criteria or not. So what all outcomes were there and how were they measured, it is also written here. And how was the risk of bias assessed? What was the author's judgment, and why did the authors say so? So all these things have to be entered while doing a Cochrane review, and these tables have to be populated with relevant text in it. So this is the risk of bias assessment. So here we can see that in this review, almost 30% of the studies were at a low risk of bias for selection bias, so for the random sequence generation, and less than 25% of the studies, less than 1/4 of the studies were at a low risk for selection bias through allocation concealment. And blinding of participants was followed by 60% of studies, and blinding of outcome assessment was also done by 60% of studies. There was 60% of the studies which has no attrition bias, and almost every study reported all the outcomes they have discussed bias. And for the other bias, it is a unclear risk of bias. And this is the graph that details about that gives details about each of the study individually. So for example, here we can see for Frostel was at unclear risk of bias for random sequence generation as well as allocation concealment, whereas it was at a low risk of bias for blinding, for blinding and attrition as well as reporting bias. So the green color shows low risk of bias, yellow shows unclear, and red is high risk of bias. So this is one of the forest plot for the outcome number 2, that is number of participants with subjective response to therapy. Here we can see that the odds ratio was the P2 odds ratio was 0.5. and it crosses the line of no effect. So from 0.2 to 1.18. So that means it is not it is not significant, although the effect estimate falls in the favor of rhinothermy. The confidence intervals cross the line of no effect, and therefore we cannot say that it is significantly favoring rhinothermy, or it is significant, or it is not favoring the control arm. And at the end of the I would like to show the slide where we have mentioned the uh, declaration of interest and the roles and responsibility of each author, and all the sources of internal and external support for doing this. So while we report the systematic review and the findings, we have to give all the details about it. So this was about this review and how we did it, what methodology we have followed, and what were the results. So this is all about this review. And now I would request Dr. Manvi to tell us about the quality assessment through the MSTAR guidelines. This review. Ma'am, you are muted.
Is my screen audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
Yes, ma'am, it is audible.
okay. So I would just like to thank you, Dr. Nishant, for the presentation of the systematic review heated humidified air for the common cold. So whether or not it is valid in the current scenario is a little debatable, because if SARS-CoV-2 infection leads to severe pneumonia or severe respiratory distress, then it is really not a question of heated humidified air when other modalities will have to be employed. However, in the case of a common cold, which is caused many times by rhinovirus and also coronavirus, so this can be considered to be an intervention which may be helpful. So in the current systematic review that was discussed, we realized that there was actually no clear consensus on whether or not this intervention is very useful. And even the pooling of data that was done, the I-square was around 20%, which actually shows that there was a lot of heterogeneity between the studies, which means they likely should not have been pooled. So, however, we will critically appraise the systematic review. That is always done using some tool which is pre-published. So one of these tools is AMSTAR. So I'll share some slides about the AMSTAR tool. It's basically a questionnaire which you can go through, and whenever we come across a systematic review, we always put a questionnaire in front of us and we tick whether or not these questions were addressed or not, and overall we assess the quality of the systematic review. How do you critically appraise a systematic review? You basically need a team who will read the systematic review, like Dr. Nishant just summarized the main points, and then we will just go through this list. And so I will introduce you to the tool. It is called AMSTAR, that is a measurement tool to assess systematic reviews. This is the full form. And are main considerations. Why is the quality of systematic review important? Because it guides clinical decision making. How best to measure quality? By using some questionnaire like AMSTAR. So these are the main considerations, and the authors of these tools, they have these other questions like how to develop such tools and how to further develop. So this is the AMSTAR 2. It is the second version, updated version. So we will just go through this questionnaire. Was a priori design provided outlining the review methods prior to starting the review? That is, was a protocol written? So a protocol is always written in all Cochrane reviews. So the answer to this question will be yes. Was there duplicate study selection and data extraction? So the answer is yes, because there are in this updated review there are 4 authors, and the breakup of the various tasks has been given in the slides presented by Dr. Nishant. Was a comprehensive literature search performed using at least 2 electronic sources and reasonably supplemented by other sources? So the answer is yes. Like we already saw that Cochrane, Embase, PubMed, etc. all these databases were searched when the systematic review was conducted. So were the study inclusion criteria comprehensive, including publication of all types and languages? So in this, likely English language studies were only included. So that is there. So probably the answer would be no to this one, because only English language studies were included. Was a list of study provided? Yes, the list was provided, both the included and excluded ones. Were the characteristics of included studies provided? Yes, in a detailed table. If we read the complete systematic review, then all the details of the studies were provided. And was the scientific quality of included studies assessed and documented using an established scale? Yes, that was also done. In the, like we saw the diagram, the risk of bias graph that was shown. So that is actually the quality assessment of the included studies for risk of bias. Scientific quality of the studies used appropriately in formulating conclusions? It was, but the conclusions were actually not very clear. They were mostly that we still do not know whether or not rhinotherapy is actually effective, although our results are more inclined towards the use of heated humidified air. Were the methods used to combine the finding of studies appropriate? So pooling of studies, that was one issue. So probably we cannot answer this question now, and perhaps a review of literature to see whether any more studies have come up, that can be conducted now. Was a likelihood of publication bias assessed? So in this, there was no funnel plot that I could see. I mean, we had not conducted a publication bias review, so that probably this answer will be no. And was COI stated? Yes, the conflict of interest was stated. So this is basically the AMSTAR tool. So as we saw, it is easy to use, understandable, easy to apply, good teaching tool, and not too difficult to score. So of course there is some gray areas whenever we have to, some of it is based on opinion rather than so that is one thing, but it is reasonably a easy tool to apply when we want to suggest whether or not a SR quality or a scientific systematic review quality is good. And it takes very less time. So there are many other tools, as we can see, which have been developed in order to assess the quality of a systematic review. So this basically is kind of an introduction into how to critically appraise systematic reviews, because now we have a lot of systematic reviews also apart from the literature, that is original studies like RCTs, etc. So as I said, these are the reasons which we can use why AMSTAR should be used. So this is a website one can refer to in case they are interested in learning more about this tool. So that's all I would like to share. So of course, if there are questions, we are open to questions.
Any questions?
I have a question. While going through this article, in the PICO there is adding settings. So, is that optional or in the overview part?
Sir, can you please repeat your question? PICO में क्या वो है?
There is another heading, settings. After a population, there is a setting and then intervention. Hello, am I audible, sir?
हाँ जी. Sir, PICO participants, intervention, comparator outcome,
Huh?
and then this is the S is the type of studies.
Okay.
Actually, I think this question about setting, the question about setting is also
Setting.
important, because sometimes the studies have been conducted in community-based kind of settings. Sometimes the studies have been conducted in clinics. Like in this review also, the studies have been conducted in two types of settings. One were experimentally induced common cold patients, and the other ones were patients who would have clinically got common cold. So these are two different settings in this population also. So many times you should not be pooling studies which are of different settings. For example, we never pool studies which are from clinical setting, like from hospital-based studies in comparison to the community-based studies. So I think this question is valid, and this is what will be considered.
Here in our summary finding tables, we have mentioned the settings, that is the clinic or the general practice.
Yeah. So there are other points also which Dr. Manvi had mentioned about writing the protocol for this particular review. This review was first published in 1998, and I was actually the sole author of this review. And at that time, Cochrane Library had just, in fact, this was not a Cochrane Library at that time, it was Cochrane Database of Systematic Reviews. And Cochrane Library came on later on. So that's the time when they were looking for reviews, and they were inviting people to do systematic reviews. And that's the time when I had attended a conference in Australia and was doing a little fellowship there. And that's the time we just conducted this review. Although this was done taking all the precautions which were there in the Cochrane handbook. Subsequently, there have been updates to this review, several updates to this review, and the one which has been just discussed is the latest review which is there, which has undergone quite a bit of rigorous methodological evaluation. Because earlier the results were that yes, this is helpful, but now after grade was applied and all other studies were seen, there has been some confusion whether one can just take this result at its face value. So recently, I think there was some extrapolation of these results, and people have started using steam inhalation for coronavirus infection also, the COVID-19. And Dr. Anil has some information to present on this.
Thank you, ma'am. I am Dr. Anil Chauhan, and I will be presenting the results of a recent technical report, which was on the this microsona technique, engineering of the microsona technique that could be used for the treatment of COVID-19 patients. So I will be sharing this paper. So this is open access technical report, which has been recently published in May in the Curious. The title is the Heated Air Delivery by Microsona, an experimental treatment prototype concept for coronavirus disease 2019. So this has been published, and it has hypothesized initially that that engineering of the microsona prototype for the delivery of heated air is a safe and safe and a tolerable manner. It is emphasized that its administration may benefit subjects of varying degrees of illness severity, from those seeking primary prevention to patients who are critically ill. And the goal of this technical report was to further encourage the study of heated air as a potential COVID-19 treatment. They have also taken in the background of this this Cochrane review of 2017 of the rhinothermy, that it could affect in the this treatment of the viruses. So the technical report has these three parts, that is concept formulation, process highlights, and the final prototype. The concept they have taken they have taken that it intend to deliver air heated to 80 to 90 degrees Celsius. So in the in vitro experiment, in the previous experiment, it has shown that at 56, 67 and the 75 degrees Celsius for 90, 60 and the 30 minutes, this coronavirus get destabilizes and neutralized. So on that basis, they have conceptualized that at heating at 80 to 90 degrees Celsius, which delivered in a controlled manner, could be advantageous for the treatment of this coronavirus. So in this concept, they have taken the initiative, and they firstly attempted with an experiment where they have taken a water bucket and which has a temperature of 80 degrees Celsius, and it has been connected with the respiratory mask. So it was non-tolerable to the humans, and so this failed. And subsequently, they then included a hair dryer, which has a 12-inch cube and with a modified respiratory mask connected. And in this experiment, they also used the air temperature of 80 to 100 degree, but the temperature it dropped dramatically through the length of the hose. So it was also not well tolerated. And then it was included that the ideal prototype, it could be of the following features, that is having the heating elements that has larger than those in a hair dryer, a concentrated area of heated air delivery to minimize the heat to the user's face and body, and third is the air delivery within a narrow temperature range, and last is a short distance from the heat source to the respiratory interface. So they came up with the final prototype, which we can see here, which has the 4 components. What are these? First is the electric heater. The second is the electric metallic tube, which is having a conductor and a connector. Third is the anesthesia mask. And fourth is this PID, that is the proportional integral derivative, which is coupled with the thermocouple. So these 4 have different uses, such as this electric heater, it gives a temperature of 80 to 100 degrees Celsius, and electric metallic tube, it conducts the heated air through this tube to the anesthesia mask, and there is a controller that is coupled with the thermocouple, which regulates the temperature of 0.5 degrees Celsius, and it is having an EMT tube of 3 to 4 inches, not very long. So finally, this prototype was being developed, and they aim that the future studies would be done on this prototype, and which would have a good results for this COVID-19 treatment, and they have also received the motivation from the Cochrane review of the Singh et al. For this prototype. These some of the limitation of this report were that the replicability and the applicability issues are there. So these has to be taken here, and the conclusions are that the heated air delivery by a microsauna treatment prototype may prove beneficial in treating the viral pathogens. And endpoints to consider include symptomatic benefit, viral shedding, length of hospital stay, and mortality rate. And this microsauna delivering air heated to 18 to 90 degrees Celsius can be feasibly engineered from an electric heater, that is EMT connector, anesthesia mask, and the PID connector. And having the safety profile, then this strategy should be explored as a potential COVID-19 adjunct treatment and wearing patients care treatment. And this sauna treatment has been used in Finland as a closed room with a heated temperature from the last 20 to 30 years. And they have also published a study for the mortality and the cardiovascular risk, where they have seen the benefits in their cohort studies. So this is a modification of that thing that they have taken it to a microsauna. So for this treatment. So that was about this report. So any questions or regarding this report? So any queries about this technical report which they have published? So Dr. Praveen, if there are no queries, so
Okay. I have another question regarding the MSTAR tool. Should we fill the form online, or we can also do that critical appraisal offline also? Because there are two types of form available.
You can use any of the two as per your comfort. You can if you are doing it on an online form, you can do that also. And if you are doing it for your the team is there itself, you can do it on a hardbound form, on
So,
a hard printout.
after doing that appraisal, we got some score also. Is it there? We got scores from
Yes,
that.
you will get you will there are some markings also given, whether it is partially whether there is partial agreement or there is complete agreement. So based on that, you can score the review.
So,
I had to temporarily leave the meeting because there was a phone call coming in and my audio got disconnected. So I wasn't able to hear the final comments by Dr. Anil Chauhan as to what is the role of this new device which is being fabricated.
actually, this is, ma'am, conceptually it is a good prototype as they have reported. So they have taken our review, Cochrane review, this hypothesis.
That I saw in the reference number 6 or 7.
Yeah, and they have taken the temperature of 80 to 100 degree. So,
But how can you give 80 to 100 degrees to human mucosa? But what I feel is, initially we used to take steam inhalation, which is actually boiling water, and then whatever steam is coming, the steam is supposed to be at 100 degrees Celsius.
yeah, so
But it kind of gets cooled and it vaporizes, and then it leaves the latent heat, and they say that latent heat is the one which actually kills the virus. And so steam at a higher temperature is used. Like we had done a randomized control trial earlier for bronchiolitis in giving steam through steam tents and and to a control group, and we had find a very significant help in patients with bronchiolitis. This trial is published, and then there is another these days there is a equipment called HFNC, the high frequency humidified air, which is being used in CPAP like machines. HFNC it is called, nasal cannula, heated humidified high frequency nasal cannula, and that study has been that equipment has been used in bronchiolitis, and that was to deliver this to the lower airways. Now for upper respiratory tract, I think the kind of rhinotherm, which is there, I think rhinotherm also can be adjusted to produce vapor at a higher temperature.
Yeah, 56, we can have the 56 as the in vitro species.
Rhinotherm can give up to 60 degrees.
60 degree.
We
Up
can
to 60 degrees.
Okay. But I guess if you set the thermostat at a higher level, you can give temperature at a higher level also, because rhinotherm is nothing big. It is simply steam being produced and that vapor being administered to. There was a firm called Netzer Sereni who was making these equipments earlier on.
Yes, sir.
But I think then they went out of use, and it is only HFNC which has come up now in the recent times, which is quite expensive in comparison to these equipments. So delivering steam, in the usual way probably helps. The one which everybody is taking these days as a scare from coronavirus. And I mean, that
Why?
is something which should be tested actually in our
But
RCT.
we can use the sauna techniques that
Yeah.
most of the countries in Finland also, they are in a closed room, the heated humidified air, a patient could be kept for if the temperature is
No,
low.
why sauna? You can just simply use steam inhalation, which we use in hospitals and all. You know, there is this steam inhaler which is there,
Yeah,
which is
steam
even used
inhaler.
in by people to take steam for facial reasons. I mean, this gives it only to the face. Sauna is meant for the whole body.
Whole
You don't
body.
need steam for the whole body actually when you're treating upper respiratory infection.
Yeah.
Sauna is meant to just relax you and produce a better circulation and all that. So if you just want to give it to the face, you can just use the usual kind of steam inhaler which is there, and just compare it with something else. And do a study like this.
There could be a study we can design. Some
Yeah,
study
we
of
can
this.
design a study. Because giving sauna to people is so difficult. You can't have a sauna in every house.
We
Yeah, it's so
have a control this close.
Everybody cannot tolerate it.
Yeah, everybody can't tolerate also. It's
Accountability
quite
is-
quite difficult sometimes. It's very suffocating actually. So, any other questions from anyone? So, if there are no questions, I think we can give our feedback.
Yes, ma'am. I had
Yes.
shared the
feedback
form.
form.
Yes, in
Okay.
the chat box.
All right. So we can fill in the feedback, and then the next session, I think we will announce.
Yes, ma'am.
So if the feedback is done, we take leave from you.
Ma'am, there is a question in the chat.
Is there any report or paper mentioning steam inhalation as prophylaxis for COVID-19? Question from Dr. Meenakshi. Actually, in many of the protocols which are being published for COVID-19, steam inhalation is one of the treatments which is being mentioned. So we have just reviewed the evidence which is relating to rhinovirus, and for coronavirus, actually there isn't much direct evidence which is there. Is that okay, Meenakshi?
Yes, ma'am.
We can make some searches. Maybe you can search literature again and then see if there are any studies.
No, ma'am, there are no studies.
There are no studies.
I was searching that there was no studies regarding this COVID-19 in the stream.
Even we had communicated one write-up also, but there were no studies.
Can we do this some sort of intramural trial in our own hospital? Can you recommend it to authorities, especially for the health personals who are posted in emergency? Like maybe they can use it every day after going home. Can it
Actually, this is being recommended. I mean, we have been recommending it to everyone. It's written in the protocols also, but there is no trial. But you're right, a trial should be done on this. You can do a trial.
Higher temperature.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, thank you very much. We'll meet you again next week.
For next week, ma'am, there is two options we have. One is a lecture with the Dr. Nusrat, or we can do that on protocol writing. So which should be opt?
I think let us have first lecture from Dr. Nusrat if she's free, because many times she's not available.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
If she's available, let's have that lecture, and then we will handhold the protocols which have been submitted to us.
Okay,
And
okay.
we'll refine them. In the meantime, I think we can go through these protocols, and then give a feedback to the people who written that.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Next
Okay.
session we will have on critical appraisal.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay then. Thank you. Thank you very much.